I'm standing in ankle-deep water watching everything I built drift away. Karen Peaton's HOA just had my $40,000 sailboat demolished. 3 years restoring that Catalina 38. Weekend spent sanding teak, replacing rigging, breathing life back into her after my wife passed. That boat wasn't just fiberglass and sails. It was therapy. It was silence when my house felt too loud. It was the only thing that gave me a second chance at feeling whole. Karen called it an eyesore dragging down property values, so she made sure it disappeared. Feeling better now, Garrett? Karen's voice slices through the cool morning air as she strolls down to admire the wreckage. I turn toward her slowly, fragments of wood and foam drifting between us. Thanks for checking in, Karen. I'm doing just fine. She frowned slightly. That's not the reaction she expected. No shouting, no tears, no breakdown. 3 weeks ago, I uncovered something in Uncle Robert's files that changes this entire story. Something she has no idea about. What would you do if your HOA destroyed your boat? Go to war instantly? I'll let them think they've already won. Drop your location in the comments. Revenge fast or revenge right? Because this is only the opening scene. Let me take you back 3 weeks before Karen's little demolition celebration. I'm sitting in Uncle Robert's dusty study, sorting through stacks of maritime paperwork for the estate attorney. Bills, registrations, dock permits, the usual red tape that follows waterfront property like barnacles on a hoe. Then I see it. A thick manila folder stamped, Lighthouse Cove Marina Corporation. Inside, incorporation papers dated 1962, stock certificates, and a letter written in Uncle Robert's unmistakable handwriting that makes my pulse jump. Garrett, if you're reading this, some fool is probably trying to push you around about your boat. Thought you should know you own most of the water they are standing on. Use it wisely. Uncle Robert, the scent of aged paper and salt air drifts in from the open window as I flip through the documents again and again. 67% ownership, a Lighthouse Cove Marina Corporation. Water rights extending 200 feet from shore. Every so-called waterfront homeowner in Lighthouse Cove, lessees, not owners, including Karen Peaton's immaculate waterfront palace. I lean back in Uncle Robert's leather chair, thoughts racing. For 3 years, Karen's been bullying boat owners, pretending the HOA has authority over maritime issues. Turns out she's been cosplaying power she never actually possessed. Every citation, every fine, every community standard she enforced, legally worthless. But here's the beautiful part. I don't have to reveal this immediately. See, Karen Peaton cannot help herself. Give her a sliver of perceived control, and she'll grab a mile. Let her taste victory, and she gets reckless. I've watched her pattern for 3 years. First it was old Pete's fishing nets, then the Morrison family's lobster traps. Now my sailboat. Patterns make people predictable, so I decide something that sounds insane. I'm going to let her escalate. I'll document every unlawful action, every intimidation attempt, every overreach into maritime law while she believes she's untouchable. And when she crosses fully into criminal territory, which she will, because people like Karen always overplay their hand, I'll bring everything down at once. My maritime attorney confirms what Uncle Robert's paperwork already proved. Marina corporations override HOA authority in waterfront matters. Period. In coastal disputes, corporate water rights beat neighborhood associations every single time. But timing is everything. Move too soon and Karen retreats. Maybe resigns. Maybe relocates. That's not justice. That's escape. Strike at the exact moment, and she implodes so thoroughly that no future Karen ever tries this again. The creak of dock boards outside Uncle Robert's window sounds different now. That's my marina. Those are my tenants. And one of them has been pretending to be the landlord for 3 straight years. I start keeping a journal. Every encounter with Karen, every unlawful demand, every harassment complaint from local boat owners. Once the fishing community realizes someone's finally listening, the stories flood in. Threats, bullying, selective enforcement based on boat size and owner income. For 3 weeks I build my case. I study her reactions, learn her triggers, mention property values, and she explodes. Question her authority, and she doubles down. Challenge her publicly, and she overreaches. I sip my morning coffee as her latest violation notice arrives. Final warning before enforcement action. I know exactly what that means. Karen's been asking about demolition contractors. Sal at the harbor master's office mentioned her questions about emergency vessel removal. She's going to destroy my boat, and I'm going to let her. Because sometimes the best trap is the one your enemy builds themselves. Sometimes justice isn't about preventing the crime. It's about letting the criminal expose themselves so completely that the evidence speaks louder than you ever could. Seagulls cry overhead, circling the harbor Uncle Robert loved. Working boats. Generational fishermen. Real maritime heritage. Karen sees waterfront prestige and inflated property values. She's about to learn the difference between owning water and respecting it. 3 days after discovering the documents, Karen makes her first move. She arrives at my dock with a clipboard, measuring tape, and her cousin Eddie, apparently Lighthouse Cove's new marine assessment specialist. Morning, Garrett. Her tone is syrupy sweet. Just conducting a routine waterfront inspection, making sure everything complies with community standards. I'm on my yacht's deck sanding teak railings, watching the performance unfold. Eddie is wearing golf cleats. Actual golf cleats. To inspect the boat, the metal spikes scrape against fiberglass, and I have to bite my tongue. This is priceless. That's interesting. Karen, what qualifies Eddie for marine assessment work? He detailed my husband's boat last summer. Very meticulous. Eddie nods solemnly, snapping photos of my rigging like you're collecting evidence for a felony case. Then he grabs a shroud for balance, setting off every bell and wind chime within 50 yards. The harbor erupts in noise while Eddie swings awkwardly like a confused holiday ornament. Structurally questionable, he declares after untangling himself. And aesthetically incompatible. Karen beams as if she's just solved global poverty. There you have it. Official assessment. 2 days later, the HOA violation notice appears in my mailbox. $150 daily fines until my yacht meets undefined community maritime standards. The board votes 4-3 in favor. Karen personally delivers a notice that evening. Feeling the pressure yet? Garrett? Actually, Karen, this is fascinating. Tell me more about these maritime standards you created. While she believes she's tightening the screws, I'm constructing a case that would make any prosecutor smile. From my Coast Guard days, I remember maritime jurisdiction clearly. HOAs have zero authority over vessels on navigable waters. My attorney friend in Boston confirms it when I call. He's fighting similar HOA nonsense in Marblehead. The county courthouse becomes my second office as I review marina leases and boundary maps. Uncle Robert's documents show our dock lease extends 200 feet into navigable water, far beyond HOA reach. I file formal complaints with the State Harbor Commission and send Karen a firm cease-and-desist letter outlining maritime overreach. At the waterfront diner, the smell of bacon grease and coffee fills the air as word spreads. The fishing community rallies fast. A Coast Guard coffee fund jar appears behind the counter overnight. She tried to make me move my lobster traps because they looked disruptive. Pete Torino mutters. Disruptive to the fish, I guess. Captain Morrison shakes his head. Same woman said my nets violated aesthetic covenants. She couldn't tell a troll net from a clothesline, but she's got opinions about everything floating. Meanwhile, Karen organizes her concerned homeowners circle, trying to gather support from yacht club elites and new residents. But bullies lose power the moment they are challenged publicly. The local paper runs a story, HOA versus Coast Guard veteran. Who controls the water? The reporter loves a David versus Goliath angle, especially when Karen refuses comment and says all questions should go to her legal team. What legal team? Eddie and golf cleats? More boat owners come forward. Years of intimidation stories surface. Karen's strategy has always been pressure and silence. Previous victims just moved their boats and left. I'm not leaving. And every day she continues, I document another violation of state maritime law. Town Facebook explodes with stories. Even yacht club members start avoiding Karen at the grocery store. Then the call arrives. Mr. Blackwood, this is Rebecca Palmer from the county assessor's office. We reviewed waterfront tax filings after your Marina Corporation inquiry and found significant irregularities regarding the Peaton property. Can we discuss your corporate water rights? Victory tastes different than I imagined. Not because I've won, but because Karen's about to realize she's been claiming water rights she never legally possessed on property misfiled for 3 years. Funny how people who throw their weight around rarely check if the ground beneath them is solid. Within 48 hours, Karen hires a real marine surveyor. Credentials, professional demeanor, no golf shoes. Mr. Blackwood, I'm required to inspect your vessel for safety concerns. He climbs over my yacht professionally, checks cleats, through holes, structural integrity. 3 hours later, he hands me the report. Your vessel is in excellent condition. Minor recommendation to tighten one dock cleat. Fully seaworthy. Karen snatches a paper. What about this loose cleat? That's a violation. That's maintenance, not a safety issue. She calls the harbor master. Next morning, during a November storm, Harbor Master Salino shows up irritated and soaked. I've got to check this cleat she's screaming about. He tightens it in 30 seconds. There. Fix. Tell her to stop wasting agency time. So Karen calls the Coast Guard. They politely explain they do not inspect private vessels on private docks without emergency calls. Your concerns don't meet intervention criteria. While Karen burned credibility statewide, I prepare Phase 2. Environmental compliance. Waterfront modifications require permits. I walk a shoreline with a camera. Unpermitted boat lift. Dock expansion with no filings. Landscaping runoff flowing into protected shellfish beds. I document everything and call the state environmental office. Massachusetts doesn't play around with contaminated water. We'll inspect next week, the officer says. Unpermitted structures require remediation. The irony tastes better than coffee. She's weaponizing regulations while breaking half a dozen herself. Then Karen escalates politically. She persuades 3 town selectmen to attend an emergency HOA meeting about my yacht. 40 residents show up at the community center. She presents a slideshow comparing luxury yachts to my non-conforming vessel. Property values require consistent standards. That's when Pete Torino stands. Karen, I've fished these waters 40 years. Garrett's boat is the prettiest thing here since my grandfather's lobster boat. Agreement ripples through the fishermen. That's a working boat restored with pride, Captain Morrison adds. Not some floating mansion nobody sails. Karen's expression tightens. We're discussing standards. Whose standards? Pete fires back. This was a working waterfront long before you arrived. The meeting collapses into chaos. Karen storms out accusing officials of failing to protect investments. 2 selectmen approach me quietly afterward. Garrett, we don't control boats anyway. She's overreaching. More owners step forward that week. A regional boating magazine requests an interview. My dispute becomes symbolic. Property rights versus bureaucratic bullying. And Karen is running out of legal moves. 2 weeks after that disastrous meeting, she goes nuclear. I'm driving to Vermont when Pete calls. Garrett, you need to come back. They destroyed your boat. The drive home feels endless. Demolition crew arrived at dawn. Gone by noon. Nothing left. I pull in and see empty dock pilings like broken teeth. Hull fragments floating. 3 years of restoration scattered across the harbor. Diesel fumes hang in the air. My engine split open, leaking into the water I love. Karen stands on her deck holding a glass of wine. Sorry about the mess. Garrett, emergency action. Structural concerns. I wade into the debris, lifting splinters of teak I sanded with my own hands. Fury rises slowly. But beneath it, satisfaction. Because Karen Peaton just committed multiple felonies on water she doesn't own, witnessed, documented, and executed without permits. I photograph everything. Debris, oil sheen, contracted truck plates. Pete stands beside me. I'm sorry, Garrett. You did nothing wrong. Pete, this is exactly what I needed her to do. He stares at me. What do you mean? I mean she just destroyed a seaworthy vessel on state-controlled waters without authority. I slip my phone into my pocket and smile. She just completed the criminal case I've been building for 3 weeks. Police reports are filed within the hour. Insurance investigators confirm seaworthiness. The demolition company admits they never pulled marine permits. They assume HOA authority. The contract was signed by Karen personally, which makes her personally liable. And while I'm handling insurance and evidence, the State Environmental Office is conducting its surprise inspection of Karen Peaton's property. The timing couldn't have aligned more perfectly. Environmental Officer Sarah Palmer finds exactly what I documented 2 weeks earlier. Unpermitted dock alterations. illegal runoff draining into protected shellfish beds, wetland violations requiring immediate corrective action. Mrs. Peaton, you're facing a $50,000 environmental fine, plus mandatory remediation costs, Officer Palmer explains while Karen's complexion drains of color. You have 48 hours to begin corrective measures or additional penalties will apply. Karen's voice rises into a sharp, panic pitch that carries across the harbor as the weight of it lands. This isn't just a fine. It's potential criminal exposure for environmental contamination. At the same time, the local news crew pulls in to cover the yacht demolition controversy. The reporter interviews Pete, and his words couldn't be scripted better. 40 years I've worked these waters, and I've never seen destruction like that. That boat was restored with pride and care. What happened out here this morning? That's criminal. Cornered by cameras, Karen makes a worse mistake yet. That vessel posed a danger to the community. I acted under HOA authorization for public safety. Except the HOA meeting minutes reflect no such authorization. 3 board members are already distancing themselves, claiming they were misinformed about both legality and timing. The bitterness of losing my boat starts blending with something else. Victory. Yes, my sailboat is gone. But in destroying it, Karen crossed legal lines that ensure her reign ends permanently. That evening my maritime attorney calls. Garrett. Between the police reports and environmental violations, the district attorney's office is reviewing this. Destruction of property. Environmental crimes. Acting beyond legal authority. She's looking at serious exposure. I stand on my fractured dock while the sunset paints the harbor in gold and crimson. Fragments of my yacht float nearby. They aren't debris anymore. They are evidence. Evidence that will protect every boat owner in this harbor from future Karen Peatons. Police boats circle the oil sheen left in the water. Justice doesn't always arrive gently. Sometimes it requires sacrifice. Sometimes you let the enemy expose themselves by destroying what you love most. Karen wanted to play with authority she never had. Now she's about to see what real authority looks like when backed by environmental law and criminal courts. Game over. Karen, you just outplayed yourself. The day after my yacht becomes splintered history, I decide it's time to finish this. 3 weeks of patience have been strategic. Now she crossed a line that demands action. I call an emergency town meeting for Friday night. The public notice is simple, regarding marina authority and waterfront property rights. Karen likely assumes I'm seeking negotiation, maybe damage control, maybe surrender. She has absolutely no idea. Friday evening, the community center is standing room only. Word spreads fast across fishing docks and yacht club lounges alike. Even regional news crews arrive, anticipating fallout from the demolition scandal. Karen enters late, dressed in a tailored power suit, leather portfolio tucked under her arm. Her husband Frank and 3 HOA board members trail behind her. She's glowing with confidence. Thank you all for coming. I begin from the podium, Uncle Robert's manila folder in my hands. I've called this meeting to clarify waterfront authority in Lighthouse Cove. Karen smiles wider. She believes she's about to witness my concession. 3 weeks ago, I discovered something in my uncle's estate papers. Something that changes everything about the marina regulations Mrs. Peaton has been enforcing. I raise the incorporation documents. Ladies and gentlemen, meet the majority owner of Lighthouse Cove Marina Corporation. That would be me. Silence floods the room. You could hear a seagull flap 40 yards away. Filed with the state in 1962 and never dissolved, I hold 67% ownership of this marina. Every dock, every slip, every inch of water access your waterfront homes depend on. Karen's face loses color instantly. That means every waterfront resident here, including Mrs. Peaton, holds land rights, not water ownership. Your deeds grant access. They do not grant authority over navigable waters. Whispers ripple through the crowd. For 3 years, Mrs. Peaton has operated under the assumption that the HOA controls maritime matters. Under Massachusetts law and these corporate filings, that authority has always belonged to the Marina Corporation, which means it's belonged to me. The room smells faintly of panic and stale coffee. Harbor Commissioner Mike Walsh stands. Mr. Blackwood, are these documents verified? Fully verified and state recorded. The corporation was dormant, not dissolved. It's being formally reactivated. Karen finally finds her voice. This is absurd. You can't just, Mrs. Peaton. I interrupt evenly. Yesterday you destroyed a $40,000 vessel on water outside your authority. Multiple felonies on property owned by the Marina Corporation. The room erupts. Reporters scribble furiously. Frank sinks into his chair. But here's the interesting part. According to original marina agreements, waterfront lessees owe corporate fees based on water use and property value. These fees haven't been collected since my uncle passed 3 years ago. I looked directly at Karen. Your property alone owes $31,000 in back marina fees, not including penalties and interest. She leaps to her feet. This is outrageous. Additionally, environmental violations discovered this week occurred on Marina Corporation property without authorization. Officer Palmer nods. The violations are significant. 3 weeks of patience culminate in this moment. So here's where we stand. The Marina Corporation is officially reactivated. New lease agreements will be offered at reasonable rates. Environmental compliance becomes mandatory, and harassment based on fictional authority ends immediately. Karen's voice cracks. You can't take people's homes. I'm not taking homes. I'm clarifying who owns a water access that makes those homes valuable. And right now, you owe enough to replace the boat you destroyed twice over. 3 years of intimidation collapse in seconds. The meeting ends with residents requesting new lease details. Practical people willing to operate under real law. Karen storms out, already dialing lawyers. The next morning my phone rings before sunrise. 8 of 9 waterfront homeowners want to discuss lease agreements. The 9th? Karen isn't answering. My maritime lawyer arrives from Boston with reactivation paperwork and a grin. Garrett, this is the most satisfying property rights case I've handled in 2 decades. We notify the Secretary of State, Harbor Commission, Environmental Protection, Coast Guard Auxiliary, every agency that needs to recognize legitimate marina authority. Ink dries on legal filings across my kitchen table. Karen spent 3 years pretending to regulate water. Now she's about to experience actual regulation. Marina corporations have broad legal authority over waterfront safety and compliance. My attorney explains. You can enforce what the HOA never legally could. I spread Uncle Robert's marina blueprints out. This place was designed as a working waterfront, commercial fishing and recreation coexisting, not an exclusive yacht enclave. I hire a licensed marine engineer to inspect every waterfront property. Not Cousin Eddie, a real professional. The results are revealing. Karen property has the most violations. Oversized boat lift beyond weight limits. Unpermitted electrical work. Decorative changes weakening shared dock structures. Marina safety follows Coast Guard standards, superseding local codes. Even wealthy homeowners answer to maritime law. Meanwhile, I build alliances. The fishing cooperative receives priority dock access at fair long-term rates. Captain Morrison nearly tears up when I offer a 50-year lease at 1990s pricing. Karen tried pricing us out 3 times. He says, this lets us stay. Marine Conservation Group's partner for harbor restoration. Dr. Sarah Martinez confirms Uncle Robert's design improves water quality. Financially, 8 properties owe $89,000 combined in back fees. But I offer amnesty. Pay 50%. Sign environmental agreements. Receive long-term protection. Most accept immediately. Karen receives no amnesty. Her liability includes back fees, yacht replacement, environmental fines, and harassment litigation. Security cameras go up at marina boundaries. Fully legal. Everything documented. Media coverage expands. Television interviews frame the story as family legacy versus bureaucratic bullying. Sunlight exposes everything. Harbor Patrol veteran Jim Bradley joins as security consultant. Karen's harassment has been an open secret for years. He tells me, nobody had standing to stop her, until now. We schedule the official marina compliance inspection during Harbor Festival weekend. Maximum visibility. Then I uncover something deeper. Frank Peaton's insurance firm has been charging inflated high-risk marina premiums, risk that didn't exist under proper marina management. Karen and Frank profited from chaos she created. The rocking creak of Uncle Robert's chair reminds me why this matters. He protected this waterfront for 40 years. Karen chose to gamble with imaginary power. Now she's about to experience real consequences. Her response? Total meltdown disguised as strategy. She hires a high-end Boston attorney, forms a defense committee, begins whispering about my mental stability after losing my wife. Garrett is using grief to manipulate this community, she claims. Veterans with PTSD shouldn't control property investments. She doesn't realize 3 neighbors are recording everything. Mrs. Henderson calls me. Karen asked me to sign a petition questioning your mental state. I told her exactly where she could put that petition. Desperation is replacing perfume when Karen appears at marina boundaries. Convinced the documents are fake, she hires a private investigator. He investigates the wrong Garrett Blackwood, a Coast Guard mechanic in Michigan with a flawless 30-year record and a Bronze Star. The mistake strengthens my credibility. Meanwhile, I activate every legitimate power of the Marina Corporation. Official filings, engineering surveys, environmental enforcement. Everything she pretended to do, I now do legally. Karen tries lobbying selectmen. They review documentation with counsel. Mr. Blackwood's authority appears legitimate. Selectman Williams confirms publicly. Karen shrieks. This is a conspiracy. You're all being manipulated by a mentally unstable veteran. Nobody appreciates being called corrupt. But Karen's fatal mistake comes next. She approaches Harbor Commissioner Mike Walsh with an envelope of cash. Perhaps we can clarify this marina confusion, she says, sliding it across his desk. What she doesn't know, Mike is wearing a wire. The FBI has been investigating municipal corruption along the coast, and Mike agreed to cooperate. The recorded conversation is devastating. Karen, I'm prepared to make it worth your time if you can uncover issues with Blackwood's Marina Authority. Mike, are you offering compensation in exchange for altering official findings? Karen, I'm offering a consulting arrangement for a deeper look into possible discrepancies. Mike, what you're describing sounds like bribery of a public official. Karen, don't be ridiculous. This is business. I just need this marina fantasy to disappear. The flavor of poetic justice grows richer by the hour. Karen tried to dismantle my life using imaginary authority. Now she's dismantling her own with very real federal crimes. The FBI delivers a recording to the district attorney Thursday afternoon. By Friday morning, Karen is facing federal bribery charges stacked on top of state environmental violations and property destruction counts. Her elite Boston attorney withdraws immediately after hearing the tape. No lawyer wants a client who commits fresh crimes while defending older ones. Frank Peaton's insurance firm falls under state investigation for inflated marina policies based on fabricated high-risk conditions. 30 years of premiums justified by problems created by his wife's harassment crusade. You can almost hear Karen's empire collapsing across the harbor. Her property sits under environmental enforcement. Her husband's business teeters toward suspension. Her defense committee dissolves once federal charges surface. But she still isn't finished. Desperation makes people reckless, and Karen Peaton has exhausted nearly every legal option. I learned she's quietly exploring emergency property sales and sounding out developers about acquiring marina land. The woman who terrorized boat owners for 3 years is about to discover that some vessels don't sink easily, especially when backed by legitimate authority instead of fantasy power. Dr. Martinez called with news that almost makes me laugh. Garrett, the EPA is reviewing your marina as a model for sustainable waterfront design. Karen's violations actually documented what to avoid. Even her crimes are improving the harbor. Justice sometimes carries a wicked sense of humor. I stand on my rebuilt dock. Yes, already reconstructed using Marina Corporation funds from the Amnesty Program, watching sunset paint the water gold and crimson. Tomorrow is Harbor Festival. Karen thinks she's staging one last public redemption. Instead, she's about to face accountability in front of the entire community she intimidated for 3 years. The creak of new dock boards beneath my boots reminds me that destruction sometimes builds something stronger. She destroyed my yacht, but she demolished her credibility beyond repair. Game nearly finished. One final move remains. The morning of Harbor Festival, Karen plays her last card. She arrives at dawn with a moving truck, 3 hired workers, and what looks like a desperate attempt to erase evidence before official inspections begin. I watch from my dock beside Officer Bradley and Dr. Martinez, coffee steaming in the cool air, as Karen orders her crew to dismantle illegal dock additions. She's trying to remove evidence before EPA documentation. Dr. Martinez notes, photographing everything through a long lens. Too late. It's already catalogued. The scent of fresh lumber from my dock mixes with a harsh bite of panic-driven demolition. Chainsaws chew through boat lift supports, causing further environmental damage while attempting to hide the original violations. Demolition in protected waters requires permits, Officer Bradley calls out, especially during active environmental enforcement. Karen pretends she doesn't hear him. She's racing the clock before festival crowds gather. What she doesn't know, federal environmental officers are already present in unmarked vehicles, documenting every unauthorized cut, every fragment falling into protected water. By 8 a.m., vendors and festival crews arrive. Fishing exhibits, conservation booths. 3 news vans positioned for coverage. Karen's demolition becomes frantic as witnesses multiply. Her workers begin hesitating. This doesn't feel permitted. Are we supposed to cut supports in a protected zone? Just keep working. Karen snaps. I'll handle the paperwork. Paperwork? The woman who demanded permits from everyone else has none for her own emergency demolition. At 10 a.m., the official marina inspection begins. Engineer Roberts arrives with a professional crew and media documentation equipment. The timing is flawless. Mrs. Peaton's boat lift exceeded rated capacity by 40%. Roberts announces publicly, these structural changes endangered the shared dock system. Karen rushes forward, covered in sawdust and sweat. The HOA approved those modifications. The HOA had no jurisdiction over marina engineering standards. Roberts replies calmly, only the Marina Corporation can authorize structural changes affecting navigable waters. Vindication tastes sharper as violations stack publicly. Environmental Officer Palmer arrives with federal backup. Mrs. Peaton, you're now cited for unauthorized demolition in protected waters during enforcement review. The debris requires immediate hazmat response. Karen's voice rises toward hysteria. This is persecution. I was protecting property values. Festival attendees gather. 3 years of her victims now watch her answer to legitimate authority. Pete Torino speaks to Channel 5. She spent years telling fishermen our boats were illegal. Turns out she was breaking the law all along. Then Karen sees me speaking to reporters. She storms forward, finger pointed. This is his fault. Garrett Blackwood forged documents to steal this waterfront. He's unstable. Families begin backing away. Her voice echoes across the harbor. That's when FBI agent Collins steps forward. Mrs. Peaton, you are under arrest for attempted bribery of a public official and conspiracy related to federal environmental enforcement. Silence. Only camera shutters break it. Her face cycles from fury to realization. As they lead her away, she shouts one final threat. You haven't heard the last of this. My husband will sue everyone. Frank, standing in the crowd, simply lowers his head. He knows it's finished. Dr. Martinez grips my shoulder. Garrett, this will be studied as a case in environmental justice. Harbor Festival resumes around us. Music plays. Children laugh. The community she ruled through fear celebrates freedom. I stand on my dock watching sunset settle over legally protected waters. Uncle Robert's working waterfront vision restored. But the story doesn't end there. Later that afternoon, Harbor Commissioner Walsh takes the stage. We are here to formally recognize the reactivation of Lighthouse Cove Marina Corporation and clarify waterfront authority. Karen, released on bail, pushes through the crowd disheveled but defiant. This is fraud. She shouts. He manipulated this town. Walsh asks calmly, do you possess documentation granting HOA authority over navigable waters? Karen falters. We have community standards. Yes or no? Silence stretches beneath crying gulls. Mr. Blackwood, please present your documentation. I stepped forward with verified incorporation papers filed in 1962 and reactivated lawfully. For 3 years, Mrs. Peaton enforced regulations she had no legal authority to impose. Karen's voice cracks. This is a conspiracy. Then it happens. A metallic snap echoes across the harbor. Her illegally oversized lift, weakened by rushed demolition and stressed by afternoon wind, fails catastrophically. Support chain scream. Her $60,000 yacht plunges into the water. The splash drenches festival spectators. Fuel ruptures, creating a spreading oil sheen. Gasps ripple across the crowd. Environmental crews mobilize instantly. Dr. Martinez addresses the crowd. This demonstrates why weight limits and engineering standards exist. Officer Palmer steps forward. Mrs. Peaton, you are now facing additional federal environmental charges. Karen stands stunned as her yacht sinks stern first beneath waters she claimed to defend. Justice feels complete. 6 months later, everything has changed. Karen serves 8 months in federal prison. Frank loses his insurance license and pays heavy regulatory fines. Their waterfront home sells at a loss to the Torino fishing family. The harbor sparkles, free from intimidation. The Marina Heritage Fund establishes scholarships, restoration projects, and a public boat workshop. Universities study our marina as a model. Blackwood versus Peaton appears in maritime law textbooks. My insurance settlement funds a sailing school vessel. Every Saturday, children learn to sail on waters free from discrimination. Dr. Martinez and I build something new together. The marina thrives. Fishing families secure long-term leases. Conservation partnerships strengthen water quality. Harbor Festival doubles in size. Uncle Robert's vision endures. Every sunrise over this harbor carries a quiet reminder. Karen tried to rule with fake authority. Real authority answered. And sometimes the strongest revenge isn't destruction. It's restoration. The taste of lasting justice is worth every step it took to achieve it.